So, as you all know, not all customers who ask to be transferred to a supervisor should be transferred to a supervisor. And that's because there's only a very limited number of team leads on the floor. If you can help the customer and you have the access to the solution, then you should not transfer the call if possible. But of course, that's too general. In this video, I want to be more specific and I will discuss the different reasons and the different scenarios why a customer might ask for a supervisor and what you should do for each scenario. Let's begin. The first scenario is if the customer asks to talk to a supervisor right at the start of the call, right after your opening line. A customer would say, "Let me talk to a supervisor now." What are you going to do about it? In this scenario, your first goal is to find out why the customer wants to talk to a supervisor. You can ask the customer, what seems to be the problem? I can probably help you out with that if you could just give me the order number or the information about your issue. The key here is to convince the customer that you are confident in solving her problem. You want to convince her that most probably you can and you have access to the solution to her problem. And when she believes that, she will give you more information about her problem. She will give you the order number and the information needed for you to access her account and see what her problem is. So once she gives out the reference number, order number, or any info that will help you understand her problem, go right ahead and check her account. While she is explaining her problem, check her contact history. Did she talk to an agent previously? What did they talk about? What is the reason why the customer is upset? So once you piece these puzzles together by checking her account, checking her contact history, and asking probing questions, then it's time to convince the customer that you can help her with this problem and that there's no need to transfer to a supervisor. Again, the key here is to sound confident. When you sound confident and sure, you will convince the customer to not want a supervisor because the right person who can help her with their situation is already talking to her. For example, the customer's issue is that she was sent the wrong item. She was promised by the previous agent that she's going to receive a replacement and that she's going to receive an email with a tracking number. Unfortunately, she did not receive an email about the tracking number. And when you check her account, a replacement was processed for her. The only mistake that the previous agent did was to not send the tracking number to the customer as promised. As a result, the customer thought that there was no replacement processed for her. In this case, you would tell the customer, "I truly apologize for this inconvenience. I checked your contact history with Candice and it says here that she processed the replacement last Friday. Unfortunately, it looks like she forgot to send you the tracking number. Now, what I'm going to do is to send you an email right now with the tracking number while we're on the line." So take note of that last sentence. That is the resolution of the agent. Take note of the power word now. So let me repeat. What I'm going to do is to send you an email right now while we're on the line. That statement conveyed an immediate resolution. That is very important when you want to convince your customer that there is no need to transfer this call. I got it, and I already have the resolution right in front of you, ready for you to take. So if you phrase your solution like this, 9 times out of 10, the customer is not going to need the supervisor anymore because you have completely solved the customer's problem. You have the resolution, and all the customer has to do is to wait for the email. And once she hangs up the phone, her problem is resolved. So at this point, asking for a supervisor would only take more time. Therefore, you can successfully de-escalate the sub call. And remember that if the customer is angry with the past service or the past agent that she talked to, you need to diffuse her anger first. You need to empathize with her first, apologize if needed and applicable, and then proceed to the resolution. That's very important. You need to diffuse the anger first because that's the only way that you can get the customer to listen to your resolution. But what if after the customer explained the problem, she still wants to talk to a supervisor? What if she's not convinced that you could help her? Or what if she's just fed up with the previous agents that at this point, she believes that the only way that she could solve her problem is to talk to a supervisor. What should you do? I don't think you have that much of a choice. You just have to transfer the call to a supervisor. Although some agents might try the last resort, which is to tell the customer, unfortunately, my supervisor is currently in a meeting or currently engaged in a call, but I'm sure I can help you with that. So in this case, the customer would think that she doesn't have a choice but to talk to you because the supervisor is unavailable. But again, if she's really adamant, if she's really super insistent that she wants a supervisor and no one else, not an agent, but a supervisor, then to transfer the call to a supervisor, because some calls are just meant to be sub calls before you even answer them. And now that you have confirmed that a certain call is a sub call, then your next step is to approach your TL or team lead. Unfortunately, for a lot of agents, this could prove to be a hard task, approaching your TL and telling her, hey, there's a sub call for you, madam. There are certainly team leads who make it clear to you that he or she is not happy about you transferring a sub call to him or her. So in this case, if you have a TL like this, your goal is to make him or her understand that you did everything you could to assist the customer. If you need to enumerate the solutions you've proposed to the customer and how many times the customer refused your attempt to help her, if you can convince her that you did your best to assist the customer, then she's going to understand that she doesn't have a choice but to take the damn sub call. What usually annoys a lot of team leads when it comes to sub calls is when they think or when they're convinced that the agent hasn't done anything under his power or her power to help the customer. Your job is to convince her that you did. Also think of it from your TL's point of view or perspective. How would you feel if an agent just transfer a call to you when she could have assisted the customer? Of course, you would be annoyed, especially if you are busy with other tasks. Needless to say, you would be annoyed with unnecessary sub calls. But of course, there are just TLs that are just a little bit, I don't know. You just wonder how they became a TL because they are not approachable and they're just unreasonably rude. That you just wonder how and why did they become a TL when they're not willing to help their agents. I can't say that I have experienced that though, but I heard a lot of agents who did. If this is your kind of TL, then it's probably time to talk to someone higher up and, to just talk about the TL's behavior, because that is your right too. It's also your right to get a TL who will help you when needed. After all, that is the purpose of a team lead. Now, if a customer wants to talk to a supervisor because of your mistake in the middle of the call, then here's what you're going to do. Now, let me tell you a story about my call a few years ago where the customer demanded for a supervisor because of my mistake. It was a simple mistake. I was just a beginner then. The customer wanted to change her shipping address because she put the wrong address when she placed the order. So I took down her new address and edited the old one. And after that, for confirmation, I read the new address to her. I think I remember now. She gave me a Canadian postal code. It was composed of 3 letters and then 3 digits. So it's like ABC and then space 1, 2, 3. So she gave me that postal code. And unfortunately, in the state, I heard that she said New York. And of course, as you all know, New York is in the US. So I asked her, oh my God, it's awful. I told her that there seemed to be a problem with her address because she gave me a Canadian postal code, but the state was New York. And it turned out that she actually meant North York. So that was in North York, Ontario. And then I thought that North York was New York. It was just so obvious that I was not Canadian. It was just so obvious. And at that point, she just got so irate. I understood her though, I really did. Because obviously if I put New York there instead of North York, then the package would not be sent or delivered to her address. It would be returned to sender because there's no such thing as New York, Ontario. I'm not sure if there is, but anyway, it will be shipped. It will either be returned to sender or be delivered to a wrong address. That's all. And so the customer obviously was irate. She was not happy about me being ignorant about the states. And then she asked for a supervisor. It was so stressful for me because the reason why she asked for a supervisor was because of my mistake. So yeah, I put her on hold, told her to wait, and then I approached my TL. So I told my TL everything. I was just I told her honestly that I'm so sorry, TL. It was really my mistake. I asked her why it was New York when she gave me a Canadian postal code. And luckily, I had a really competent TL at the time. She stuff when needed. She also has sympathy for her agents. I think what she told me next really helped me with that customer. She told me that, look, before I take this soup call, why don't you go get back to your customer and apologize to her? Tell her that it's an honest mistake. And then if she doesn't accept that, then I will take the call. And I was so stressed out because I really hate it when customers yell at me. So I just went back to the customer and I told her that Amber, I truly apologize for my mistake. It was an honest mistake, I assure you. Just to assure you that I have the correct address here, I will send you a confirmation email right now while we're on the line to confirm that I have written North York instead of New York and that I have the correct address. I truly apologize. That was an honest mistake. And luckily, the customer actually understood and she said, okay, send me the confirmation email. And then the call ended well without me having to transfer the call to my supervisor. And I was really happy that my TL taught me that. She basically taught me that customers are also human. If you just apologize, if it is your mistake, if you just truly apologize and let her know that the mistake is not going to happen, then they will understand and they will not have to ask for a supervisor. So at that point, I promised her a confirmation email just to show her that I got the right address this time. I really liked my TL because instead of giving us fish, she taught us how to fish, basically. Of course, this is not always going to work, but if your scenario is like this, then you might want to try apologizing to your customer if it is your mistake, and then give her some reassurance that the mistake is not going to happen. And most likely, she's going to accept it and she's not going to demand for a supervisor anymore. Okay. And the third scenario is if the customer is asking for a supervisor because she doesn't like your resolution. In this scenario, the customer's goal is to talk to a supervisor in the hopes of getting a better resolution or answer. So in this case, your goal is to convince your customer that even a supervisor cannot make a difference in her case, that she cannot give her a different resolution or answer. You can say something like this. But because I have already given you the exception before, I have no other option but to charge you the penalty this time. This has been our company policy since 2010.
Well, then transfer me to someone who can, because I'm certainly not giving up on this. Transfer me to your manager.
I'm afraid nobody can grant your request, Cersei, not even my manager. There are things that my manager can do and I can't, but canceling a late payment penalty is not one of them.
Doesn't matter. I still want to talk to your manager. She's the manager after all, and you're just an agent. But your manager, being the manager, should be able to do something about my situation. It's logic.
I'm telling you this because I don't want to take up more of your time, especially if it means you're going to be hearing the same answer from my manager. So when you tell your customer that a supervisor cannot make a difference in her case, then she's unlikely to insist on a supervisor. Of course, this is not going to work all the time, but at least it will slash the number of customers who will insist on a supervisor. There are still customers who will ask for a supervisor because they want to talk to someone higher up, higher than an agent. Then your only choice would be to transfer that call to a supervisor.
Oh, don't you worry. Trust me. I have all the time in the world.
Okay, please give me 2 minutes so I can inform my manager, okay? But saying this should reduce the chances of that customer demanding to talk to your team lead. By the way, guys, if you want to see the whole version of that call, I'm going to link it up here so you can check it after this video. And another scenario is, what if the customer, right at the start of the call, is demanding for a supervisor and you ask her what the problem is and she doesn't disclose anything? She doesn't tell you what the problem is. She simply wants to talk to a supervisor. So if this is the case, the customer is a tough nut to crack. She doesn't tell you anything about her problem. She's saying that she simply wants to talk to a supervisor. Then your only choice would be to transfer the call to a supervisor. Again, there are calls that are just meant to be sub calls even before you answer them. Just breathe. This is not your task. This is a sub call and this is the task of your team lead. And the last scenario that I can think of is if the customer's problem is something that only your team lead or only the escalation team can resolve. This is a no-brainer. Obviously, you want to transfer the call to them immediately. There's no point convincing them that you can help them when you can't. All right, so I think that is all for today. If you have any questions, suggestions for my next video, comment down below and I will make a video of that in the future. All right, that is all for today. Bye. And don't forget to subscribe and like, and bye.